Hello, welcome back to From Soft Serve. Today I want to talk about something I've been kind of doing in the background and not super talking about it on the videos, other than like occasionally I'll be like, hey, I'm upscaling textures, or I'm still kind of looking at it. But now I'm a little more, I don't know, I'm a little more serious about it. I mean, I'm still doing like God knows how many other things, but this is sort of just like while I'm in the areas working on them, and I do notice a texture that looks really shitty, I will upscale said texture. I do have some comparisons that I'll edit into the video. Oh my god, that grass is floating? Oh my, how did I not notice that? Oh, I'll fix that. But yeah, last night I was like, you know what? Let me dig into Firelink Shrine real quick. And I think I'll do that occasionally, where I'll dig into one map and fly around it in DS Map Studio and, in-game, of course, and look for really shitty textures. Because I don't think all the textures need upscaling. I think it's just some of them. Some actually look pretty good. And so in here, specifically the ones I remember upscaling, because I looked at most of them, I upscaled this little archway as it was really nasty. Like, it was as blurry as ever. It was so bad. So I upscaled that. I'm usually going to like 2K resolution. Some of the bigger textures, like for instance this rock wall. I don't think I've actually upscaled this rock wall. It looks pretty okay on its own, but that's an example of a big texture where I will go up to 4K because there's a good payoff for going up to 4K. And I even upscaled like this little, the archway section is the same from over there, the little wall that's behind it, and then you have kind of the grass. I did that one weeks ago, but I just didn't say anything. And then the ground around Firelink Shrine, if you load up the current version of my mod, it is Disgusto El Barfo. It's very blurry, and so I fixed that. It's now pretty good, pretty sharp. And then the stairways have gotten an improvement. They're no longer like massively blurry. And so like they're better. Yeah, like this one used to be super blurry. And because a lot of the textures get reused in Dark Souls Remastered, like they get reused for different areas, which is totally understandable, right? I think one of the nastiest textures I upscaled last night was, this stairway got a little bit of love as well. What's up, guys? How's it going? Yeah, this wall here was hideous. I'm surprised I ran by it so often with it looking so ugly. But yeah, it's real nasty. And now I went up to 4K on it. And so this actually is a good example to talk about the limitations for upscaling Dark Souls Remastered. And it's sort of in the weeds texture stuff, so it might not be interesting to everyone, but I mean, most of my channel I think probably isn't interesting to a majority of humans, but it exists nonetheless. So this foliage here, I was able to upscale that as well. It was a pretty low resolution texture. I had to make sure that it didn't change the look of it too much. Actually, all of my upscales have basically maintained the original look, like 100%. I make sure of that. That's my main goal with the upscaling, is it does not affect at all what the original intent was. It is literally just a sharper version, a clearer version of what was already there. And yeah, but this foliage was interesting, because when I upscaled it, it looked Technicolor and had compression artifacts, which I've seen before. And I was like, well, okay, I remember that happening recently, and or last time I tried. Like, I've given up on upscaling these textures many times. Also, that texture looks great. Look at that detail. And so first thing I tried was your standard upscale, which is to, you convert it back to a DDS file, and you use BC1 texture compression, which is really old texture compression. There's different versions, BC3, BC5, BC7. BC7 is kind of your standard now, used for DirectX 11 games. It's really high quality. The texture size is the same, mostly between the two of them. But BC7 can handle more things at once. And I'm assuming there was a transparency issue, but so basically I tried BC1, it looks terrible. And all of these other like environmental textures, almost every other texture in Dark Souls Remastered uses BC1, which is what Demon's Souls uses on PS3. It's really old. It's really annoying. And so I was like, well, shit, okay. So then I tried uncompressed, where you don't put any texture compression on at all. That's what I do on the light maps. When I pull up the light map DDS files, I actually make them white and I save them as uncompressed. And that is the only way that those work, for whatever reason. Because I guess there's no detail you're actually trying to preserve, so that's why you do it uncompressed. And the size isn't that big because it's just one blank, white color, right? And anyway, so then I tried BC7 because I was like, you know what? Fuck it. BC7 shouldn't work because it's never worked on all these other textures. And, well, lo and behold, it works fine. It's the only texture I've found thus far that uses BC7. Like Dark Souls 3 uses BC7 because, well, it's a DX11 game. It's newer. And, of course, it should. And I was praying, hoping that Dark Souls Remastered would use BC7 on its textures, but it does not. Although, I will say it is interesting. Now that I know it can accept BC7, like the foliage, it obviously used it, and it worked, and it displayed correctly. That just means, presumably, these other textures, there must be a way I can tell the engine that, no, use BC7. I swear to God, please use it. It's better. Because I'm sure people are watching this thinking, well, then what's the big fucking difference? Why is that important? Well, so when you're upscaling from like, a lot of these are 512 by 512 resolution, so like half of 1080p, right? And so when you're doing that and you're boosting them to, 1K, 2K, 4K, well, the problem is when you do the texture compression, which is, shrinking down the file size, different compression is better or worse. And so BC1 versus BC7, BC7 holds a lot more of the detail when you do it. BC1, unfortunately, compromises a lot of the detail that you're adding. So it's essentially clamping down on the amount of detail. So there still is a noticeable difference, but it is less noticeable than it could be. And that is a bit frustrating because Dark Souls 2, I didn't have that problem because I was using the lighting engine, its texture replacement system, and it was specifically designed to use BC7 because he basically just reprogrammed the entire thing. And that was a absolute joy because the difference you could just so clearly see. But yeah, so little aside about the foliage. Foliage got upgraded. Most all these ground textures got upgraded. I haven't done any armor or any sort of those textures I haven't looked at. I think they honestly look pretty, like, I don't know, I think they actually look pretty decent, like to where, like, yeah, I'll look at them, but I don't think they're so massively bad. I think it's really weird when some of the texture overhauls will be like, we've brought it up to 4.8 or 4.8K for the armors, and I'm like, dog, the camera is a certain distance away from the armor anyway. Like, you don't need that fat ass texture. You just really don't. So that's the other thing I'm doing with the overhaul, where I'm very keenly aware of like, what do I need to upscale and what don't I? And also when I do upscale, do I actually need to go that hard, So these tombstones got an upgrade. They were ugly. And I'd say they're still not great, but they are way clearer than they were. And luckily it was like three textures for the whole graveyard. It was pretty nice. Also, I don't think I said this in the last video. I always forget. But anyway, I ported the fog from Firelink Shrine, that SFX that's over there that's basically creating this fog. And so I'm not using the new Londo fog anymore. This fog is actually a particle effect, and so it looks correct. When you rotate the camera, you can actually see that it's rotating them, but I think it's not terribly noticeable. I need to lower this one, but it affects like with the lighting really well, and it just looks so good. So yeah, I added some of that particle effect fog to the graveyard, and I think gives it like a really spooky vibe that it already had a spooky vibe, but now it has like a specifically spooky vibe. More spooky, if you will. Also, the Uchi Katana is peak. Always will be. But yeah, even this tombstone got an upgrade. And so my initial textures that I upscaled were actually in the painted world. I've been upscaling textures there. I've been working on the painted world, but I just haven't really talked about it because it's still like in progress. And so yeah, so let me on screen, let me show the comparison between the two images that I saved of the textures just to show the upgrade. Oh wait, hold on. Okay, well that was meant to happen. I saw something load in. I saw another draw group issue. Oh yeah, I was in the depths. Don't worry about that. I was working on the depths. I relit some torches that had somehow been extinguished. I don't fully know why, but you know, such is life. Yeah, let's go back that way because I think I noticed something drawing in. I also noticed a bunch of new bugs on the bug tracker on Nexus, and I was like, son of a bitch. I've created so many bugs for myself. I love hunting them down, though. I will admit that's fun. Alright, let's keep a keen eye on the distance here. Something is loading in. Okay. Oh, I think it's the grass here. Yeah, I think it was this grass. Let me know in the comments. I'll check the draw groups on those anyway. But yeah, really quickly actually, I'll show how I find... So I solved the biggest problem I had, which was essentially, how do I solve what texture I want to upscale? Like that was my first big problem, is that I didn't know. Yeah, let me go in here. Dark Souls. I didn't know, basically, like I was looking at a texture I wanted to upscale, but I didn't know what that texture was called. And that was a big problem because at that time, I didn't know how I could. I was much more novice at the Fiverr files and understanding like they had all the different textures that were listed in it when you open them. But even then, I could open the Fiverr file and I was like, well, I don't actually know, because a lot of them have like 30 listings and they have all these different textures that are associated with this map piece. And so narrowing it down was like, well, this one is called Rock 01. Well, maybe that's it? I don't know. And so I ended up fixing it by, it's a feature in DS Map Studio. So basically, let's say we load up Firelink Shrine. This is what I was upscaling last night. And so this is kind of for if anyone else has a certain texture they want to upscale. This is how you do it. So let's say we grab this one, which is 2020 B2. So basically you tab over, or you click over to the model editor, and you click on the map you want to open, which is 1002, which of course corresponds to these maps here. And you click on that, and you scroll down, or you can search. You can just type here, but I like to scroll. And we have 2020 B2. Now here you have to be careful, at least I do, because I added the 2020 B2 is from Firelink Shrine. All the B1s are from Undead Burg. I've manually loaded those into that map, so you just have to make sure you click on the correct one. It will then load the actual file. And the cool thing is it actually loads the upscaled textures, because of course those textures are exactly where they should be. So it's easy for me to tell which thing I've upscaled and which one I haven't, which I think I need to look at, like this texture. There's one I'm missing here because I've clearly upscaled something here, but it's using a height map between them to interpolate between the two textures to make it look like they're they're blended together essentially. But yeah, actually, what the hell? So basically what you do is, if you're looking for something specific, like if you're looking for this texture, you click on it, it will tell you the material index of 17. And I go, okay. But if I'm looking for this ground, I'm looking for, and I click around a little bit just to make sure there's not like another one that's selectable, but it says material index 13. So then what you do is you will pull up, luckily I had a quick access, but you just go to your map folder and you find the map that you're looking for, which is 1002 Firelink Shrine. You'll get that in your head a lot of like the different numbers pretty easily, but even I have to look back and go, oh shit, which one is which? So then we find 2020, and you can see we have 2020 B1, 2020 B2.dcx. I've already unpacked it into just the Fiverr file on its own, which we have to do. And because the DCX just makes it, just compresses it. And the game only sees the DCX. It doesn't see the Fiverr files. It's kind of unlike Prepare to Die Edition, which apparently just uses like straight Fiverr files, which is weird. But they all kind of function a little differently. And so here we are. We've opened it in our Fiverr editor. Shout out to TKGP, Catalash, Forsaken Silver. And then the newer one is followed up by Pear, is the one who's making the more current one. I have both versions. But you click on Material, and you now see this giant list. And you'll notice on DS Map Studio it says Material Index 13. We now go to the index over here, and it says 13. And so the texture we are looking for is 10 base floor 01 or M10 base floor 01. You'll notice it says .tga, and you might be thinking in your head, well, that's weird. Aren't they DDS files? Like, yes, technically we are saving them as DDS, but the game engine clearly converts it over to a TGA for actual use in the game, but it does that on its own, so you don't have to worry about it. So we have M10 base floor. So then, I know this probably, now that I'm doing this, does seem a little laborious, but that's just Dark Souls 1 upscaling. You can actually dump all the textures at once. I've done that. I've dumped all the textures at once, and then you can sort of like go folder by folder and just upscale all of them. I did that, and then unfortunately because I upscaled all of them, I upscaled them to 4K or 2 or 4 times resolution, and then the game just didn't load. It would just crash. There was some limitation. So me going piece by piece on this is slower, but it's a lot smarter, because not every texture needs to be upscaled. Not to mention it creates issues on some textures. There's some that look weird when you upscale them for no particular reason, when some look fine. And that's just how it is. So my slow way is the correct way. And a lot of the upscaled textures have already made their way into the overhaul mod. I've updated it, but I just haven't said anything. I've just been adding it and going, okay, I won't mention it. So we now are in our M10 folder, and we're hunting for the M10 base 401. And admittedly, what you can do, first thing you need to do, though, is you'll see these BHD files. So there's 02, there's 01, there's 03, and then ignore the 99999. Don't worry about that one. That's the only one that gets a DCX. I don't understand, and don't even worry about it. It's not a big deal. And so basically, unpack all of these. Unpack the BHD. And you'll notice the BHD actually, it doesn't have a real size to it. What it's doing is, if you try to unpack the BDT, it's not going to work. So you need to unpack the BHD, and the textures are actually stored in the BDT. This whole sentence sounds ridiculous, but I promise you it makes sense. So you basically unpack them, and you'll get these folders down here, which you can see is then ordered by how recently I've accessed them. And what I usually do is, I don't actually like using the search function, because then it will look in there. But the Windows search function is kind of ass. Like, there are times it just doesn't work. Like, it should find a folder, or it should find a file, and it goes, dog, I don't know what you're looking for. And I'm like, dude, it's very clear what I'm looking for. And it just decides that it doesn't want to do it. So I tend to jump in and just look myself, basically, because you can go alphabetically when you sort by the name. And you'll see these are where I've done a lot of the light maps. They're stored in these texture files, and they're all denoted by this sort of how it's ordered here with lit. That's how you can quickly tell, and that's the actual map piece it's connected to. This is going to be the nerdiest episode of all time, so don't worry about it. It's fine. I'm sure you guys will Some of the nerds are really gonna love this one. But it's actually a good way of like upscaling textures. Maybe that's what I'll name the video. I'm upscaling textures and here's how. Yeah, probably that, because I think this actually could be helpful for people. Okay, so let's look for these textures. So you kind of surf through and you'll see a lot of these different ones of like, oh, okay. We have, this is an object actually. We have chair, wall, dirt, floor, M10. So unfortunately, yeah, it's not in this folder. So you kind of go, well, okay, cool beans. Now these are the ones I've already opened, but just ignore those. So we have M1001. Now some you'll see that they denote M1001 is actually Undead Berg. So M10, the texture folder for M10, is actually shared between the depths, Undead Berg, and Firelink Shrine. And that's simply because they're all denoted by M10 for their map. They're M10-0, M10-01, M10-02. And so let's do M10 base floor. Okay, we got a live one. So here's the height map that is actually doing the work between the two textures, which is M10 base floor 01 and M10 floor base floor ground 02. Also, my cat hopped up here. Hey, Bella? Bella, get down. She's very sweet, but she hops up at the exact wrong time. And you'll see the .back files are the ones I've already opened. So that's how you can kind of like keep track of like, oh shit, okay, I've already opened that one. Cool beans, I've already upscaled that. And yeah, it looks like I've already upscaled them. So I don't know why it still looks like ass. I'll have to look at that. There might be, maybe I'll have to upscale one even farther. But it's a good example of like, okay, so let's say we've unpacked it, because basically what you do is you right click and you hit Yabber, and it will then, you know, pop it back over here. We have M10 base 401. So let's open that, and it will give you a DDS file. And so just for comparison's sake, you'll see the DDS file. It's currently 2K resolution because I've upscaled it. So what we're going to do is I use the X Mad Hack tools. I'll try to put a link in the description to those because it's a context menu that is so useful to me. It's only missing one feature where I wish it could do convert to DDS, but BC1. Right now it's only set up to do BC7, which is great for like DS2 with the lighting engine or DS3. But for DS1, it's not. It doesn't work for most of the textures. So basically, convert to PNG. It will pop up the little command prompt. Do it automatically. Now you have your PNG, and that's where the tool that I use for upscaling textures is Topaz Photo AI. It's pretty sick. It's a great program. I've used their video upscaling as well. It's good stuff. So you can see I was already in the M folder. So basically, when you want to open your image in Topaz Photo AI, you will then navigate to your map, then your M10 folder, because that's of course where your textures are, and you go to the texture that you were looking at previously, which was the M10 base foreground 01. No, it was not. Ground 02, right? Oh, actually there's ground 0202. Oh, really? That's weird. That looks weird. Oh no, M10 base 401. That's what I was looking for. God damn it. Okay. So you select the PNG. It will now pull up the PNG, and you can kind of zoom in, and you have your different options of like removing noise, sharpen, face detection. Well, or it's just letting you know it's not running face detection, but it can like try to upscale faces. And basically you go, okay, cool, love it. And then you have different AI models that you can actually mess with. I find standard to be the best overall. It tells you the resolution that you're going to by doing a 2x resolution boost. And the nice thing is, yeah, you can tell it's enhancing, but you can get really close up to see, is it adding more detail? And in this case, it is. It's not like mind-blowing, because technically here I'm upscaling an upscaled image. It still works, but it would be better to take it from the original PNG. But just for this example, we'll just go with this. Cool beans. I didn't really mess with the settings too much, but I do look to see, okay, is it messing with the original image too much? Because there are times when it upscales incorrectly. it upscales to something that I don't think necessarily looks better. So sometimes I'll do a pass where I go, nah, okay. But I usually mess with the settings of like, okay, is there too much noise? Let me lower the compression it's fixing. Okay, what if I turn on the AI sharpen? That can bring out some of the details, but I'm very careful to not, I don't want to ever, basically the first rule is do no harm, right? Like, I just want it to seem like the original texture, but clearer. That's it. Not removing detail, only adding detail. That's the goal, but also not adding detail that was not there prior, if that makes sense. Like I don't, luckily this tool, it's not like it goes, we're going to add new foliage to this texture. It doesn't do that. It literally sees what's originally there and it goes, aha, we have a clearer image of this foliage, but it's incredibly smart with how it does it. It's hard to explain exactly, but it works very well. Okay, so now you have your PNG that's now fat. As you can see, this is why 4K I only do occasionally, because you can see the file size of the PNG went from like, I think it was like 8 megabytes up to 36. So going to 4K is just ridiculous. Now, of course, this is PNG. DDS files will be smaller. And then, because it compresses it for the DDS. Then when you repack the BHD file or the specific DCX TPF, that makes it smaller as well. So there's many steps of like compression before it makes its way into the game, which is good. But basically, I double click on the PNG, bring it up in paint.net. Great free program, by the way. Great for minor editing or resizing. But what I use it for here is opening the PNG, because I can't use that context menu to convert it to DDS, unfortunately, because it's BC7 or uncompressed, it's not going to work. So with paint.net, you can save it and then select DDS. And it'll say, oh, do you want to replace the texture? Yes, I do. And here's the important part. It's going to pop up. Okay, so what is the compression you want to use? And you can see there's ridiculous amounts of settings here. But the one that works is BC1 Linear DXT1. And, there's obviously all those other ones, but unfortunately they just don't work. And you also are going to want to use mip maps. It can also generate mip maps, which the mip maps are basically when you walk away from the texture with your player character, the farther you get away, it will switch to different mip levels of lower detail. So, and it creates enough of those different mip levels to where you, the user, won't notice it or shouldn't notice it, but it will consume less video memory the farther you get away from it versus always basically displaying that texture at full resolution. The MIPs are incredibly important to that. And so not everything needs a MIP map. Not everything needs a MIP map, basically. There's certain things that just, like certain items that are small enough, you're like, I don't need a MIP map. Or that will be present to the camera enough. And so, I'm not a texture expert. I'm not a texture artist at all. There are much, much smarter people than me. I use tools. That's it. I don't actually author new textures. I'd love to learn more about them. There's more I need to know. But anyway, so basically I've upscaled it. I've saved it back as a DDS file. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. And so here's my base floor that I have messed with. And we have the folder. And what we're going to do is yabber it. And what that's going to do is send it back to the .dcx file. It's going to save that. And that compresses it again. But it's also to where the game engine knows to use it, to use your changes. But we're still not done. And yes, this is all for upscaling one texture. It sounds crazy, but once you get the habit, it's decently quick. It's not bad. Oh, actually, well, I was going to return to the main menu anyway. So, circle gets the square on that one. So one thing about repacking the texture files is you do need to get out of the game. Or you need to, basically log out, go to the main menu, because it's currently using the textures. I think if you're on a different map, it doesn't matter, because it's not using those textures. But obviously I was in Firelink Shrine. And then DS Map Studio has a similar connection to the texture files. So, because I haven't made any changes to Firelink Shrine, I basically closed DS Map Studio. So this is where I'll commonly do multiple textures for one map piece. So I'll do like 3, 4, 5 different textures and do this process for all of them at once. And then I'll repack them once I've done like the 4 or 5 textures. And then go back in the game. So this isn't, you don't need to do this for like every single one and reinvent the wheel every single time. But it still is laborious, obviously. So what I do is I was messing with the 1001 here. Basically, we've repacked that, and then you need to go back to your overall BHD file that actually has the textures, because the game is using these, and then going inside that, and then grabbing the DCX file, and then unpacking that. So it does all of that on the fly. It's pretty awesome, actually. And so basically we're going to yabber that BHD file. It's going to take a little bit longer because it's much bigger. You can see they've ballooned in size up to 173 megabytes, 86, 125. And yeah, so now we've done that, we're good to go. The game will now load that new TPF BHD for when it needs it. Oh, I think the remastered game server went down again. I think it's like super. I don't think it's my internet either. Like, my internet will go out, but commonly this is just the server being wonky. But I wish Remastered had a like a toggle for just keep me offline. I know you can use the Steam thing, but I don't want to go offline for all of Steam. That's a bit of a chore, right? Let's load back in the game, and fingers crossed. Let's go back to the texture we upscaled, and it'll be pretty sweet. It's probably not going to be terribly noticeable, I don't think, Yeah, okay, that does actually look better. Nice. Yeah, okay. I guess it did need 4K. Like, it's not perfect, but it's definitely clearer than it was before. And it's using the height map to interpolate between those two textures that are present. And now they're both like really high resolution. Okay, well, there you go. You love to see it. But basically doing it in these small batches can basically keep it to where you're not going to have the game crash because you upscaled too many textures. Because then you go, well, fuck, I don't know, where was the line? When did I cross the line? I don't know. And that's why I just gave up on that, because I was like, fuck, man. But doing these little batches can keep the quality high, because I can go, boom, I'm going to upscale that. Boom, I'm going to upscale that. And you can check how it looks. Cool. If it's not, if it looks weird, if it doesn't handle it correctly, then you don't do it. You revert it. But if you do too many at once, and you're not looking at what the results are, you're going to get yourself in trouble. And, yeah, I don't know. So I'm liking the slower method, but I understand how this can seem daunting of like, Jesus Christ, you went through all those steps? Like, yeah, I mean, it sounds bad, but I like the work. So, and I think the results, have paid off mostly. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this really longest, well, it's not my longest, but I think it was just a lot of really technical, nerdy shit. But this is if you have, like, for instance, you don't need to use Photo AI for Topaz. You could use Photoshop. I think it has pretty good built-in AI upscaling at this point. Amazing, I think, really. So you can use Photoshop. You can use really any photo program that you'd like. You just need to be able to save back to DDS linear BC1 DXT1. If you can save back to that DDS file, you should be good to go. Because you can basically use anything to convert to a PNG file from DDS. But this is just my method of the workflow that I've gotten, because I don't have Photoshop, and Photoshop is so powerful. I don't need all of that. Paint.net has enough features, and it's free. And it's working for what I'm doing. So that's the key thing. Don't get too lost in like, I need to have all the best tools. But Photo AI, I've had really good success with. So I think I have a link in the description. It's like an affiliate link. So if you click on it, if you wanted to try out Photo AI, then you can. I do make a little bit of money if you were to purchase it after clicking on that link. Just throwing that out there. No need. You can also just go to the link for it. It's really cool. And yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this. Like the video if you could. It helps out a lot. It helps the channel grow. We're getting close to 5,000. So also subscribe to the channel if you have not. Subscribing, it helps out. You get notifications. You can turn it like the bell on and shit. Pretty cool. But also not needed. I don't know. I don't really get the notifications for a lot of my channels. I just come back to YouTube and it's in my recommended. So I wouldn't worry about that. We're getting close to 5,000, which I'm going to do a live stream whenever that happens. If it's late in the day, I will just do it the next day. If it's really early in the morning, I wake up and it's 5,000, well then I'll just announce that, okay, cool, I'm streaming. I'll stream on YouTube instead of doing my normal morning video, right? And, you know, it's like the Bill O'Reilly thing. Fuck it, we'll do it live. We'll do it live. And we'll chat, play DS1 with the mod, find errors, glitches, bugs, whatever, fix them on the fly, try some new things, maybe new ideas, and just kind of hang out, you know? So that's my idea for the 5,000, because I want to celebrate it, you know? And it's all thanks to you guys, right? Like, you guys are the ones subscribing. So if it weren't for you guys, well, the shit wouldn't happen. So I feel like it'd be cool to hang out, and maybe we stream more often. I don't know. I've streamed on Twitch before, and I'm pretty comfortable with it, so I don't see that as being like a huge problem. I just also like my videos, you know, because I think the streams don't make for good, like, evergreen content, you know? So I think the videos can be a little bit more focused in my own, like, non-focused, rambly way, but they can be more focused on a topic, where a stream ends up being much larger. And I don't think that makes for good searchable YouTube content, if that makes sense. But anyway, share this video if you know anyone that is interested in upscaling or modding Dark Souls. Tell them that if this jabroni can do it, you can do it too. And soon we'll have I want a whole new wave of Souls modders. We already have a beautiful community, but we would love more people, because these games are eternal, and it's the modders that are going to keep them. I mean, they're already amazing, but the modders, I think, are just going to keep them, I think, you know, get more people into them and create new experiences, and it's really special. So, praise the sun. I hope you're grossly incandescent, and I will see you on the next video. Thank you for watching.